at today with is there a GCF in the trinomial is something that I tell my Algebra 2 students all the time. This is step one of factoring every single time. No matter if it's 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms, it doesn't matter. Always check to see if there's something that everything has in common. So, with that hint being given, you probably, I would hope, know at this point, every problem we're going to be dealing with is going to have one of these. So, if I need a quick reminder, and maybe I do, I will be the reminder here. So, this is back on page 1 of the notes, and we were like, okay, when we were doing greatest common factor, what am I looking for? If there's a number that goes into all the terms, the biggest one, and if everything has a variable, I want the smallest exponent. So I go, and I'm like 3, 12, and 36. Can I get all these in my screen? Let's see. 3, 12, 36. What number's in all 3 boxes? It's not huge. 3. So I will give you one extra little hint here. More times than not, that number that's in front will be the numeric part of this. So we're going to get a 3. These both have x. This does not have x. I cannot take an x out of here. Okay? So we can only take out a variable if all terms have 1. That's just a nice thing to have added in there because it's easy to look at that and go, I want to take an x. Why can't I? Well, that's why. So in this case, the 3 is the only thing that comes out. So my only job here on the next step is going to be to divide each of these by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. If you want to put the 1 in front, you can, but we assume it's there, so we don't have to. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Leave the x. And then, again, watch signs. Negative 36 divided by 3 is minus 12. Now, back when we were doing the greatest common factor, that would have been the end. But it's not the end now. We took out the GCF, so step one is done. Step 2, factor the remaining trinomial. Factor the stuff that's in the parentheses. So now we fast forward to what we were doing those last couple of days before the quiz. Now we fast forward to, so this is, hang on a second here. This is the one where we put x's in both of these. And now we're doing that whole thing again with B and C, where we're trying to answer what multiplies to negative 12 but adds up to 4. Oh, we're doing that again. Okay. So now, I'm going to put one more little note with this, because again, it's the notes that we get stuff like this so we can help. So what?
Hi.
Okie dokie, thank you. What multiplies to negative 12 and adds to 4? That's basically the question we're asking here. And so, again, if I've taken my notes, they're still on Classroom if I want to pick them up. You're like, well, what good would that do me? Well, let's see. If my C value is negative, and it is, we're going to have one of each sign. I don't have to think about it. So plus and minus, okay. And so I'm also looking to see Now I need to find two numbers that get me to 12 and are 4 apart from each other. So I look, I'm like, 1 and 12 are not 4 apart from each other. Ooh, 2 and 6 are, though. Okay, so 2 and 6. Can I just put the 2 and 6 anywhere? No. That tells me the sign of the bigger number. Look at the sign in the middle. So, 2 and 6, because now I could check and say, hey, 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. 6 plus negative 2 is positive 4. There's lots of little things going on with this. That's why I'm writing some of this extra stuff in here to help me. And I might even be like, see the 11 for part 1 notes if I still need some help there, because that could kind of be useful. And so, just like we've seen in the last 2 sections, if it just says factor, I get my greatest common factor, I get my sets of parentheses, I'm done. If it's equals 0 and it says solve, though, I'm going to have one extra piece to this. So again, let's kind of peek around here a little bit. 2, 16, and 30. I'm pretty sure it's 2, but we're going to check. 2, 16, 30. Yep, they all got 2s. All right. So I'm going to take out the 2. Again, we're just dividing 2 into all these numbers. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that can end up just being x squared every time. For the time being, it is. Negative 16 divided by 2. Again, calculator's there for you if you need it. 30 divided by 2 is 15. And just like we did in the first one, we're going to get our 2 sets of parentheses here. So I get my x's. And again, I'm reminding myself, and I'm going to jot this down. Where am I going to jot this down? I'm going to jot it down right here. So I'm actually going to pull this out one more time. Let's see if I can get all this in here. So I look and I go, okay, first question, what sign is my C? It's positive. Ooh, I got to make a decision. They're both going to be positive, or they're both going to be negative. Look at the sign in the middle, okay? They're both going to be negative, okay? I've only got to make that decision when this value is plus. That's why, again, we've got it here. And so now I'm looking and I'm going, okay, so I need 2 numbers that multiply to 15 and add to 8. Let me get my 15 chart out here. 5 and 3, bingo. Hardly does it matter which place I put it. This time it doesn't, because they're the same sign. And I can double check. I'm like, all right, negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. Negative 5 plus negative 3 is negative 8. Absolutely doing it right. But now, anything that has x, I need to set equal to 0. So I'm going to do x minus 5 equals 0. I'm going to do x minus 3 equals 0. Not the 2. Nope, it doesn't have an x. If you don't have x, you do not get set equal to 0 with us doing these. And so we've mentioned it before, for the most part, you could really just switch the signs on these and be right. But if not, doing a one-step equation isn't going to be anything that's too rough. That's the only part that's different. We take out the common factor, and then it's what we were doing for like almost 3 full days last week. So that's going to be something that can hopefully assist us. What's that? Just nothing. As far as the solving part goes, if that part out there doesn't have a variable with it, it just kind of sits there. It's kind of weird. You'd think it's got to have some use. Not in this case. Not in this case. We will get to some down the road. What's that? Just need it for the factoring part. Yep, absolutely. So we're going to take those and pop into our new practice packet here over on pages 1 and 2. Let me move this where we're actually going to be able to use this here. So the only thing now that has gone different is we have a greatest common factor to pull out at the beginning. It's the only thing different from the end of last week. So for all these on the front, just straight factoring. Let's see here. I'm trying to find one that's different from some stuff we've seen so far. So I look here, again, more times than not, that number in front is going to be the one we're taking. Just dividing the bigs in front. Again, if you want to put the 1, go right ahead. -3 divided by 3, I'll put it in this time. -6 divided by 3. Okay, that's the GCF step. That's step 1. Step 2. I'm trying to keep this here so we can see what we're up against. Again, there's my C. There's my B. It's the new factored one. It's not the original one that I'm looking at. So I look and I'm like, okay, my C value is negative. When C is negative, we're going to have one of each sign. Every time. Nothing to think about. So now, I don't have a lot of choices. With 2, I got 2 and 1. That's going to be the numbers. So again, how do I know which is which? That's going to be the sign of the bigger number. Okay? I'll even mention it here. So that is the bigger number sign. So 2 and 1. And if I want to check, it's not hard. I'm just going to take those 2 numbers, I'm going to multiply them. There's a number on the end, there's my C. Take those 2 numbers, add them up. There's my number in the middle, my B. I'm good. I'm done as done can be. And so, as you kind of float around a bit with these, let's play with one more on this side. That's probably a good spot to go. Again, typically it's going to be that number in front, at least for the time being. We'll go baby steps. It's all good. Oops, I got ahead of myself, didn't I? I did. Hang on a minute here. Sorry about that. Okay. And I'm just using my calculator or my head to get that set. Now I'm ready for 2 parentheses. Now that I got my 4 out of there. Okay. So I look and I'm like, okay, my C value is +5. My B value is -6. Again, if my C value is plus, my signs are going to be the same, and it's going to be those 2. So my signs, in this case, are both going to be negative, because negative times negative is positive. So now the thing I got to make sure I'm careful of, when I look at my chart this time, and I'm like, okay, there's my choices. These, oops, sorry, 5 Hardy, 5. Hardy just needs to remember how to multiply here. It's a struggle at times. Okay, 1 and 5 are my only choices, so I really don't have to think that much. -1 times -5, +5. I owe my friend $1. I borrow for 5 more. I owe 6 now. It all comes together, but again, it comes back to getting through the struggle and not getting it completely at the start and jumping in and getting practice. So that's what the front looks like. And again, you'll have some clues at the bottom, but don't just use those to copy because you won't have them on a quiz anyway. We want to make sure we're good. Okay. So to the back, let's play back here a little and see where we end up. So that's a good spot. And, ooh, let's just play with the first two. That looks good. It's a mix to get you started, and that's going to be the key here. Getting started is always the hardest step. Okay. Let's give everything a divide by 2 first. Again, if you need the calculator, there is nothing wrong with that. But the only purpose our 2 is serving this time is making our factoring part easier. When we get to the solve part, that 2 plays 0 role in anything. So my C value is positive, telling me they're going to be the same signs. That tells me what sign. So they're both positive. All these little clues are there to help you. It's like going on a treasure hunt, but you got to know how to read the map. Multiplies to 15 and adds up to 8. That ain't adding up to 8. That is, though, 3 and 5. If we were just factoring, we'd be done. That'd be perfect, but it says solve, and there's an equal 0 right there. So we're going to finish this off. Only those places that have x, so the parentheses, get the zeros. And whether I do sign flips or I do my little mini equations, any of them are going to work out fine for me and get me set with those. And finally, to wrap up, again, typically that number in front is going to work. We may run into a situation sometime here soon that it doesn't, but for today, it is going to serve us just fine. 9 divided by 3, -30 divided by 3. Well, and the question people also will ask sometimes is, well, if I'm not going to use the 3, or in the last one I'm not going to use the 2, why do I even keep it there? Because factoring-wise, if it wasn't there, this does not equal this. And when we're in algebra, we need things to stay balanced. They need to stay equal. So that's why it's got to stay, even though it doesn't play a role all the way through. So I get here, and I'm like, all right. Again, I get multiple clues from these two things. The C tells me the signs. Negative is always one of each. The B value also gives me a sign. Again, that's the largest number's sign. So I don't have to wonder. So when I'm looking at 10, and I'm like, well, I got to get to 3. 1 and 10 is not getting me to 3. Add, subtract, it don't matter. Now, 2 and 5, I can get there. Like 5 minus 2 is 3. And this says the biggest sign is the positive. So if I got to use 5 and 2, the plus gets the 5, the minus gets the 2. But let's see if that actually works. So 5 times -2 is -10. That's good. 5 plus negative 2 is positive 3. Yeah, I did it right. Like, you can know right away. You just got to take a moment to practice it and try it out. And again, we're just doing little mini one-step equations. And get me there. I'll say it again. I know I'm a broken record. Practice doesn't make perfect, but man, it makes it a whole lot better than blank in IDK. It just does. I mean, it is the way it is. So, again, you get to make your decisions on how high or how low you're going to go. I'm here to help, but again, if you need to update notes, everything up to today is updated on Classroom. Answers for these are waiting there for you to check, not just to copy, because that won't help you come quiz time. Hardy, when's the next quiz? Not this week. Not this week. It'll be early mid next week is what we'll be looking for the next quiz.